Hello, YouTube, and students online as well. Welcome to another day of Basic Financial. It's very beautiful out. Recently, we had a small spell of rain, which is common for our side of Oregon, but hasn't been common this year, so not upset. So, as before, this time we'll go over homework at this time and a quick review as far as what we went through. I do apologize to you on live, YouTube live specifically, because after the video posted, I realized that all of this is backwards. I learned how to correct my issue, and I do apologize about that. So let's get it forwards now. The idea behind last week, for the most part, was to get you to understand what a liability is, as well as to look at them. Your homework was to find your liabilities, which is something that takes money out of your pocket, and either find a way to make it a asset, which puts money in your pocket, or get rid of it. I went over the very basic understanding of how credit cards work and how you can lose money with them. I also went over a single aspect as far as turning an asset or turning a liability into an asset. So for this, I would like to use somebody else's liabilities, and forgive me, there's not a ton of students in the classroom today. So let's try on Messenger. Give me one of your liabilities.
Car.
You have another one that's not used last week?
Probably, but I can't think of it.
Fair enough. Okay, so we'll rock car. All right, so the homework was for you to take your liability and come up with 3 ways to turn it into an asset. Even if that means getting rid of the liability, because without a liability, it's an asset. So what are the 3 ways you came up with?
Well, you could obviously, with your plan, to drive for Lyft, but this particular car is too old for that. So, I mean, the only thing I can think of is if somebody needed to borrow your car, you could rent it out.
Okay, so a form of renting to a friend. If your vehicle is newer than 98, you can do the food services, which is DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. Moving on, what was another aspect behind that? How else could you make you money?
If you sell it.
Okay, sell it. That is one way. Yes, that's correct. All right, and then we got one more.
I mean, I guess you could trade it in and get something on your trade.
Okay, so trading it in for a newer one that might be able to create a larger asset. That's not a bad idea. So we can trade it. All right, so those are your 3, and that's perfect. Each of them are a form of asset. So one is to get rid of it. It'll give you money in your pocket instantly. It doesn't continually give you money in your pocket, but it also is no longer a liability because you no longer have it. You can rent it out to people. Hey. So renting it out to someone, whether peer-to-peer or by allowing a company to borrow it, it'll still bring in money. What you're hoping for at the end of the month, though, is for it to cover whatever cost it takes. So fuel, maintenance, pretty much anything along those lines. And then, of course, you can trade. You can trade it in for a newer model. Granted, that means the liability is a higher liability, but you can use that newer model to create a better asset out of it. So it's really all about how you think. I'm going to really hammer home today about the mindset. I know that I kind of went over them and how the poor, the middle class, and the rich think, and I would really like to get people to start leaning in this way. So for each asset for each liability there is, as you can see, she did the renting. She looked into a couple of the other choices, and ultimately what she decided was that I can either rent it, sell it, or trade it in. And these 2 are similar, but trading it in means that you get something in return, whereas selling it, you just get cash or whatever you might feel the value is, which either way is perfectly okay. Um, what I really like to do is for everybody to just look at your different liabilities. Your best bet is to either get rid of them if you can't control your own habits, or for you to turn them into an asset. I think that that's probably the best. Since how you just showed up to class, let's go ahead and steal one of your liabilities, and you cannot use the same one.
A dog.
Okay, an animal. Perfect. A pet. Now, how can you turn that pet, which is a liability because you do have to feed it, you do have to pay for it, it does take time. It's not that we're being rude about it, it's that it's what it is. So what could you do to turn your pup into an asset?
I know there's like certain dog shows or pet shows.
Shows. Okay. So you can train it to get it to do shows. Perfect. That's one way. What's another way?
No idea.
Well, you could try out for different types of commercials like big dog breeds, because I know you have a large dog breed.
Mhm.
So you could do different commercials, in which case they may not pay you, but they may give you like a year's supply of dog food, something along those lines to take that cost out of your pocket. So we could do marketing for the dog. And then since how you said you had no idea on number 2, there is a third one. And my suggestion for that would be a companion style dog. So you train the dogs up high enough that you can actually allow other people to like take your dog for a child's companion, which people do. You can find it online. It's kind of like walking your dog, except the opposite direction. So they pay you to use your dog to keep the child happy because they cannot afford or they can't have the animal, in certain places. So you can actually do a form of renting your dog out. But that is a possibility. You are capable of doing so. And so, as you can see, 2 majorly different liabilities. One is considered a living being, and the other one is considered a mechanical object. And in both cases, we can still come up to create an asset out of it. Now, of course, she absolutely loves her dog, so I'm not saying she whips it into shape, but I am saying that there is possibilities here. Even if she were to pay for the training from a professional trainer, she could still get the dog to do shows, which will give them ribbons, be more likely to land the marketing portion. These different types of setups is just how you think through it. What?
If you do have a trainer to train your dog, would that be a tax write-off?
Only if the dog is a primary source of income and you have a business license to do the shows as a professional. It's not necessarily a tax write-off just because you paid for your dog to go through a training session. You would actually have to make that a profession. So you'd have to do it with multiple pets, not just one puppy. And then on top of that, you would actually it's possible. In fact, you could probably go sit in on the trainings and pick up a lot of the information, take notes, and then you can start training for yourself, which would be another form of creating that, going from the E quadrant to the S quadrant, which then would, yes, be absolutely a tax write-off. So we'll get more into the business side of that later on, but I just wanted people to start seeing that like everybody has their own liabilities. Some people have a lot of them, some people have zero, because they've learned this procedure. But I just want people to really understand that it doesn't matter what you consider the liability is. It's something that takes out of your pocket. Yeah, the asset puts it into your pocket. That's the difference. Okay, so it means, I don't mean it in a harsh way, but that could be literally anything. Okay, so like if you own a home and you need to put a roof on it, well, if it takes out of your pocket, that's a liability. Okay, but if it pays for its own roof, that's an asset. So this is 2 completely separate items. I couldn't have asked for a better separation between them. The idea behind it is that you can do anything with it. Okay, so the mindset is not, oh, my car payment, I'm blaming the bank. The bank gave you the opportunity. It's your job to seize the opportunity. So with that being said, that is absolutely wonderful. I can't, my mind's blown at the fact that how diverse that was. but it is the truth. So the idea behind today's classes, which is just 2 of the liabilities being changed into assets, okay? It not all pay is money. That is another thing to keep in mind. For example, in the trade-in, you're not making any real cash value off of that. You're actually trading it for a different vehicle. So that's another way of going about it. For the puppy, when you're looking into marketing, that may not potentially, I mean, it might bring in some money, but for most part, you could actually do that for trades. So, you know, a year's worth of puppy chow or whatever it might be. Maybe you want some new dog brushes and you start advocating for the brushes on a commercial or something along those lines. It's not that this is not the hard part, actually. So I know that some people struggled with pulling up this information for themselves on just 1 liability, 2 liabilities. But this is not the hard part. The hard part is taking what you know now and actually applying it to what you need it to do. So those of you that follow my Instagram, I posted a thing of courage. Okay. And so it shows a little penguin holding open some symbols over the top of a polar bear. And it states courage, obviously, is an inspirational statement. And then underneath it says, doing 1 courageous thing a day and then run like hell. The reason that I appreciate that so much is because it only takes 5 seconds to be strong. And in that 5 seconds, that choice can change your life. So I'm not saying quit your job. Please do not mistake that. If you're not prepared for this and you're not taking business courses, you should probably not quit your job. However, what I am saying is you can use these as part-time earnings. So I would never quit my job to help my pet go to shows, but I might ask for time off during that, which may cost me my vacation. Okay, but it's still bringing in that income, and that's all right. I never actually intended to make this a full-time business, and that goes back to your question. Marketing the dog, you know, this here is a bit more lucrative than going to just shows. Why? Because you can do shows and marketing at the same time. But to separate, those two separate from renting the time for the dog. So that just depends on how you do it. And then renting out your car, you got to make sure that you still have a reliable way to get to work. Why? Because just renting it out, if you're trying to compete against a company called Hertz or I don't, someone else give me another rental car company. Yeah, I don't rent cars.
I know Enterprise.
So, okay, Enterprise, good one. All right, so Hertz or Enterprise, you got to compete with them ultimately. The difference between the two of as far as you and Hertz is that they do it with millions of cars a day, so they could, you know, charge you $23 for the day as far as borrowing the car, whereas in your own home, you may need more than that to reach that goal. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's only to help offset and make it less of a liability, or to completely turn it into an asset. All right. So with all of that being shown, that was homework. I hope that each of you got something out of the homework. I think that it's best if you can see it as well in front of you and how diverse it was. Anything will work in that manner. Where did the eraser run off to again? There it is. All right. So the idea behind it is that we can use it for what is necessary. So it's not just one thing. I mean, you could do it with anything. You know, I went through and I showed you how to turn your credit card from a liability to an asset, but the only way to do that is to make that credit card reach 0 first. So if you do not have the self-control to manage your budget, please, please, please do not just go out and start purchasing credit cards or cars. You need to have the self-control and organization to do so. Now, if you look around from what you can see in my home, you can see that it seems disorganized, but the truth is, and it's kind of messy, but the truth is I'm not disorganized in business. So when it comes down to that, I value the time that I spend in business just slightly more than I do as far as cleaning the house at this time. And the reason is because I'm still at the beginning of my business set. And I say set because I've done this many times. So the idea behind that is organize in the right place. Set yourself a, oh man, my brain just stopped on me.
Set yourself up for success, not failure.
Obviously. Set yourself okay. Anyway, what you want to do is you want to set yourself up for success, as she said, not failure. The way to do that is prioritize. Set yourself a priority list, okay? So what is most important to you? You need to prioritize, because if you don't, you're just going to be all over the place. All right? So we want to make sure that we prioritize. In our household, building our home is actually number 2 in the priority list. Number 1 is creating a sustainable income so that we have the time and availability to do as we see fit. So if I create enough residual income from other positions, I now have the time and money to build and spend time goofing off in the house, doing as I see fit, of course. So our number 1 is residual income or passive income, okay? Of course, as I brought up in the first one, this would be royalties in the music industry. Number 2 is our home, all right? That doesn't mean that it's not getting done. It just means that if the first one is not complete, I don't move on to the second mission. That these will continue to keep going and going and going and going. But the concept behind it is, in order to create this, I got to spend a lot of time not only figuring out for each of my liabilities, I also need to make sure every time I receive a paycheck, or if you receive multiple styles of money, you need to pick a time like once a week, which is what I do, to reset your bills and look at what you've done. Okay, you have to constantly look at where you've been to know how you want to go and where you may go in the future. And then our home comes second. So we didn't really work on it this week. On top of that, we've already planned out and budgeted to go to Comic-Con, which I was supposed to be teaching in my uniform. I do apologize. There's a couple other things that came up. So we had to make sure to take care of that. But we chose, okay, our miscellaneous this week so that we could have some fun and just kind of goof off because we've been working really hard. That's going to take number 2, actually. I work on this every day. This morning I went and worked on this. I started at 3 a.m. Now, I'm not saying you have to, but to me, this is very important. This here is absolutely everything, because once I have that, all of the rest just fall in line. It doesn't matter which one I choose to go first that day. I can sleep in and have coffee. So in order to get what I wanted here, I had to work harder here. Okay? Because I want to create that passive income at any cost. And the reason I say at any cost is because passive income can be passed on to children. For example, Michael Jackson, I don't know how much he made last year, but he's dead and he's made a ton of money. So it actually gets donated to the things that he has requested for it to go to: family, friends, whatever he decided. Before he passed away, he put it into his will. Okay. So during that time, let's say he made $14 million. Okay. That $14 million gets split according to his choice prior to him passing. And it's something that his family collects every single month, every single year. So if I split this down, that's over $1 million a month. You're looking at his family getting paid, and they really don't have to do anything. So to me, this type of income is the best because of that. I can give it to my children. Do I want them to develop their own skills? Yes, because if they get this and they don't know how the skill sets work, or if they don't understand the process, then unfortunately they may lose that because of a bad choice. Bad choices happen. And in order to do so, we have to do what's called failing harder. Most people, they laugh at this, but when you fail harder, you learn faster. Learning faster is the requirement. So as I said before, you got your, oh, that's backwards. That'd have been great for you guys. Yes, last week, me writing it backwards. All right. So you got your E, S, B, and I. All right. So in order for you to step here and stay in the self-employed quadrant, you have to have the skill sets of an employee. That's a requirement. And the reason that that becomes a requirement is because you have to know how hard you have to work to be the employee. You have to have passion to drive forward. And it's scary stepping from E to the S, because now everything rides on your shoulders. Everything rides on your shoulders. There's no chance that you can make a mistake and not pay for it in some way. Now, that being said, you want to make small mistakes that are calculated. You want to do research and development on your own, as well as listen to those who have come before you. The entire United States, this portion, this piece here, is actually new as a whole to the world. Most of the United States prior to the big industrial age was self-employed. Each of them, farmers, they had to sell their own crops. If they didn't know how, their family starved, other than eating the crops that they made. If you wanted some blacksmithing done, you had to go down to the local blacksmith if you didn't have the skills. And if you had the skills, you would do it yourself and then sell that so that you can make yourself the food you need. So this is the employee side is a relatively new invention. Ultimately, the current schooling teaches the employee side, teaches you how to be a great employee, especially the K through 12th grade. It teaches the basic understanding of mathematics. It teaches arithmetic. It teaches language, which is great. I think that that's absolutely wonderful. And you need it in order to communicate. So that's a beginning. But once you get into that point, you jump into the employee and you start to realize that there's more. Each level, just like in school, when you start out on the bottom level, you're learning to count and to recognize letters. And then after that, you learn to put the letters into words. It's the same difference. You learn to take the numbers and put them into a math problem and understand what it means. So ultimately, this is the self-employed is just a second step. It's the same as learning multiplication. Okay, it takes a lot more time if you don't fail as much. If you feel that failing is bad, you're going to take forever to get here, if ever. Now, the reason that stepping to self-employed is so important is most people don't realize, well, the taxes are crazy. Let me explain a little more on the taxes, which I did touch on the first round or for the first class. So as an employee, okay, let's say I get taxed. My tax is 35%. Okay. That's fine. That's not a bad thing for those of you that get taxed at 35%. As a self-employed, the taxes haven't changed. They are still 35%. What makes them change is not your taxes or how much you're paying. Okay, so these two will be equal. They're considered ordinary money, which we went over that as well. So ordinary money is taxed roughly the same. Now, here's where the differences come in. As an employee, you might have one or two tax write-offs as an employee, not as a family or if you have, children credits, none of that, just as the employee. So you might, let's say, one tax write-off, which is great. That's awesome. I absolutely think you should take advantage of them as you need to do. But as a self-employed person with, let's say, the car, we're going to go back to the car. I like cars. Cars are nice. So with the car, I can deduct my mileage. Okay. My miles that I drive, my gas receipts, fuel. Okay. Now, usually, like in our state, miles and payment are a choice. So you can pick one or the other. My suggestions always go with the larger of the two, which I guess I should learn to spell too. So go with the larger of the two because it's the most return in your pocket. Okay. So my fuel, in my case, I get right off my phone because I have to have my phone to create an income on my business license. Okay. I get a write off my repair bill. If I have one. At this point, I don't. So, and I can keep going. Tires. because of the choice that I've made, I can write off some regular clothing that I use on a daily basis that are nicer for work. The reason is because that is considered my uniform. So clothing, now keep in mind, each place is a little different, but these are just a few of them. So even if I were to give these each $10 a piece, so let's say I got a $10 write off here, $10 here, $10 here, there, and there. There's 6 of them. That's $60 I got back from my taxes alone. Now, here's a part that I will not go too far into because that is for the second hour of the courses. By the way, if you're looking to catch me on Instagram, it's GREYWOLF101386. And that is my name. You can catch me there to see me on Instagram. And if you're on my YouTube, you already know what that is. So just click the subscribe and the bell and you'll get more information. If you could catch me on my Instagram or send me an instant message, you can find me on Facebook at Robert Gordon is my actual pull-up. It'll show a picture of me with my son. And there you can actually jump in with the Messenger Live for the second half. So anyway, this is $60 that I got back that you don't get back here. And that's only if it's $10, which it's not. Like right now, this here for the last, I think it's about a month and a half. It's 5 weeks. I think I'm going on my 5th week here this week. So that's actually already at $1,200. Just my mileage. Okay. My phone is a percentage. So with all that being said, I'm getting this money back. Now, I know that I have to pay 35%. So let's say I make $1,000 in the month. At the end of the month, I pull my 35%. I don't leave it there. So at 35%, we're looking at 350. All right, so this money here is now set aside for taxes every month. But that's only the beginning. Here's where I'm going to touch on something that the second half gets a lot more in depth into. So that 350 sitting is still, I believe, in accounts is going to just waste your money through the year. This is the major difference between an employee and self-employed. So at $350, that money I can still spend because I don't pay taxes till the end of the year. And an employee pays out of your paycheck every time you get paid. So this money here, let's say I do it for 10 months. So I'm going to times that by 10. All right. So that would be 3,500. Okay. So this money here, that's not a really bad thing if I'm doing it 10. Now, if we added 2 more, we'd be at 4,200. 42. Wait. 1. Yeah. So I'll do it for the full year. So it's 4,200. All right. So remember that I kind of jumped into CDs a little bit. I won't let this money sit still. Cash flow is the most important word you could ever have. C-A-S-H, flow. It's like T-I-double-G-er. So cash flow. All right, so 4,200. I'm not going to let that sit still. I'm not going to put it in a savings account, just let it rot. Because I don't have to pay until the end of the year. And I know that there are 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, and 12-month CDs. As soon as this mark hits where I want it to be, I'm going to throw it into a CD. Now, we learned a little bit about CDs. So I know that 3% is probably one of the higher CDs I saw. You can get a lower one. It just depends on how long you're keeping the money into the bank. It's you loaning the bank money, a certificate of deposit, if you want to go and look it up yourself. But let's say I put it in for 12 months. This is your average return is 3%. Now, this money here is the government's money, okay? That's not my money. I'm giving it to the tax people. I know that it's going to taxes. However, if I take that and I take that money and put it into something that creates an interest, the promise was I would pay them $4,200 at the end of the year. In actuality, I will actually pay them less than $4,200 right here because I took all that off as deductions. Okay. And then on top of that, I put it into a high yield savings ultimately. Okay, or a CD. There's other things you can do. My suggestion, unless you know enough about the stock market, do not play with this money in the stock market. You will regret it.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah.
Is there capital gains on anything in a CD?
There is. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually my next step. So you're correct. There is a capital gains. Okay. So let's say, and I'm throwing out figurative numbers because I want you to understand how this works. So let's say I made 300 as an example, and 50% is the capital gains. That's a lot, right? Well, here's the key.
Yeah.
So I took this money and now I have an extra $150 no matter what happens, because that money wasn't mine in the first place. So I just made money off of taxes. And yeah, they want to take taxes here too. That's okay. They're allowed to do that. But here I just made an extra $150 in my pocket for the end of the year. It doesn't matter at this point because that's free money. That's free money. So paying your taxes is a requirement. Everybody does it. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do, but it does matter as to what you do about it. So as an example, let's say I really, really appreciate, which I do, and I do this, I try to do this every single year specifically, but the Children's Foundation, I think, is a wonderful foundation. That's just one of the examples. There are tons of them. Let's say I took this $300 and I put the entirety of it towards the Children's Foundation. Now I know I'm doing good, but at the end of the year, because they gave me a receipt, at the end of the next year, I get to add that to it. And there is no capital gains tax. Welcome to big business thinking.
Oh.
The reason there's no capital gains tax is because you used it for an investment purpose. Now, of course, this has to be a high enough number for you to do so. However, because you made that, or for you to claim it on your taxes for the next year, but because you made that as a donation, most artists that you see, singers, those types of things, they donate heavily. And you see, oh, $1.5 million donated by, I don't know, let's say Michael Jackson, to this so-and-so. Well, that $1.5 million, he no longer has to pay taxes on because he donated the entirety amount and it was willing to be patient for his money to return. Okay, so that 50% would no longer be there if you did the appropriate thing with your money by helping others. That's the key here. I don't want a house for myself. I want a house for you. So the idea behind it is that in this thought process, you're going to continually do this. Now that $300, I made another $300 on the next run, but I got to keep this one on my tax write-offs because that went under this here. It's called donation. It's a donation write-off. That's why Goodwill even offers you a receipt, because if you donate enough, you can pull it off. Now, there is a certain limit to each of the types of donation. There are many types of donating. Blood drive is one of them. Going and giving plasma is another form of donation, and they pay you for that because that's pretty hard on your body. Okay, it takes a lot of things from you. At the same time, you're also helping them make medicines, if you believe in medicines. Of course, each their own, and I don't discriminate against anybody. So if you don't like it, that's fine. I'm not upset at you for choosing that. But because I took this money, put it into that 50%, granted, it should have been paid taxes, but I donated the entire amount. The entire amount got donated. I didn't keep it. Okay, so next year I get my $300 write-off, which means it comes back to me. And I'm going to do it again with the next set of money. And so on and so on and so on. And this is how a lot of the really big names in the world find their holes, the loopholes in the taxes. This is just big business thinking with a small business available. Okay, small business is you run it. I have no intention on running any of the businesses that I've ever started, nor will I ever continue running them. I will hire someone who is capable of doing that for me so I don't have to deal with it. And then I can just create what's called a passive income. That passive income will save you on all of this. So this information right here is very important. And the reason that's very, very important is because I want you to understand that no matter what the liability is, if you do it in the appropriate legal way, you will find that you end up actually saving more money. So granted, I had to be organized enough to keep my mileage, to keep my gas receipts, to understand that I had to turn in my phone stuff, to keep my receipts for my repairs and my tires. So like the seasonal tires coming up, $600. Awesome. I think that's great. Why? Because that $600 is now a tax write-off due to the fact that that is part of my vehicle. Okay, so I just got free tires. Glad we worked that out. my clothes, my Adidas, or the Pumas I'm wearing, or Nikes, depending on what you are, what type of brand you really stick with. Your toothpaste, for crying out loud, can be, depending on what you're doing. Now, there is something that I really wanted to bring up as far as self-employment. Self-employment, there are ordinary money, you got passive money, and then you have portfolio money. But within the self-employment realm, or the business realm, you have a different sets in each of those ordinary monies. So you have what's called competitive money, you have cooperative money, and then of course the residual money, which is you basically being the CEO, having someone else do your job for you, which is great, by the way. If you could do that, dig in. As long as the people that you hire are smarter in that area. For example, I'm not going to put a technical guru who's great with computers into marketing. I'm going to have him work with marketing, and then they will work together so that the technical guru can put what the marketing wants to see on my website. Okay. This is a big thing. This is something very much to understand, and it's very important. The reason that's so important is because I love the fact that I meet people that are smarter than me every single day. That they may not be smarter in certain subjects, like I'm really good at art, but let's say this guy's really good at financing. So I'm going to talk to him about financing. Why? Because I want to learn as much as I can. So that the idea behind that is to continue building upon this knowledge base. And he's smarter than me. Who knows? He might actually work out to be my financial advisor for one of my businesses, or marketers. It just depends on where you're at. There's a person for every specialty, and every specialty, there's always someone who's willing to work for you if you pay them enough. So the idea is to move from the specialty or the self-employed portion, which would be, doctors are, if they start their own practice, they're in the self-employed. Because if they're not there, let's say they go on vacation, their business shuts down. They don't make any money. So you need to move from that mindset, which is an organizational mostly. So you need to learn as much as you need to know to run that. But with this, in order for you to become good at self-employed and running, a small coffee shop with 1 or 2 people underneath you, there's a lot of different skills you need to learn. Leadership is one of them. In fact, in the second course, we're going through the BI triangle. In fact, today specifically, we are going through the leadership portion of the BI triangle. I think that anybody who really wants to know anything, by all means, look it up. I have no problem with you fact checking me as far as what I'm showing you. Fact checking is, if you didn't, I would be worried. And please, if I make a mistake, correct me. Like I said, if you ask me a good question and you stump me to the point where I'm like, I will have to get back to you because I must go learn this, I will send you a gift card. The gift card will be a random gift card, and I'll tell you what, I even send you a book. I got quite a few books that I really enjoyed. They may not be within this realm. They might be in leadership. They might be just a fantasy book that you'd like to read over. But I'll send you out a book too. It'll come in a fancy box when we get that boxing figured out. And then you can show your friends. I'll send a card with it along with that, and it'll fall under my business license. So no stress, okay? And don't worry, the book's also a write-off if I do this way. So no stress, no stress. We'll just get our money back when we're done. You don't have to worry about it. Yes, I just said that. That's why it's good for me to donate or give away stuff. Remember, we just talked about that right here. I want you to understand that that's how big business works. They just do it on such a massive scale that it seems like a really huge number, but this is the same as a big business thought process. The idea is to change your mentality. Okay. You don't want to be stuck in the, I can't. I can't is a horrible word or a set of words when they're put together. I like I and I like can't. I don't like them together too often. There are certain examples. I'm sure you could come up with one and I'll be like, yeah, I'd probably use it like that. But the concept behind it is you need to get rid of that mentality. It's not, so that will be the next step here. Let me grab my eraser. So with that being said, let's say you do get into the opportunity to even run a self-employed business. Okay. So the behind the scenes on that, it's not that self-employed person looked in the mirror and said, that sounds hard, I can't. Okay, so what that self-employed person did, moving from the E to the I. All right, hang on. I gotta learn to spell. E-M-P-L-O-Y. So that person did not do anything different than they were doing before, except for the biggest portion. Because most employees who've been in the workforce for about 5 to 10 years understand how to be an employee. What this person did was say, I will take the responsibility. Now that's scary. You're giving up security, which most people think security and freedom are the same thing. If that was the case, we wouldn't have maximum security prisons. Secura. Why? We wouldn't have maximum security prisons. That is not the same thing as this. For anybody who's seen Braveheart, I know I'm old. We'll get over it. Braveheart, when that came out, he died for his freedoms. He was willing to fight for it. It scared the living bejesus out of him, but he had a passion. In the original beginning, his passion was revenge. By the end, it was to see the right thing done. So that is the development that usually takes place within the self-employed realm. Okay, so security, I personally don't want security, because if I have freedom, that comes with everything that I'm going to need. And the other portion about freedom that makes it just a bit better, there's no guards. That's a big one. And then the other portion is freedom. In order to get there, I had to learn skills. So that means if someone tries to take my freedom, I know how to get back to freedom. Okay. So the idea behind it is that you leave an open mindset. So let's say you want a brand new car for you wanting to start Lyft, as an example, okay? On Messenger. Try not to use your name. I don't want to be rude. But let's say it's $10,000. And they say, we'll give you a loan for that much. All right. Yeah, we'll give you a loan. It'll come with a 10%. Like I said, I like good round numbers. It's easy for most people to understand. I can do more complicated numbers, but it's just not worth it when you're not getting what I'm saying. So 10% APR. That means when you're done at 10,000, 10, we're going to move it over. You owe me $11,000 when all is said and done. Now that number there usually scares people. And then they say, but here's the catch. You need to put down $1,000 up front. Well, let's say you have, okay, so that's with the APR, and this is what they want you to remove. So, oh, there we go. And then they want you to remove this by putting that up front. Let's say you only have $300, okay? The problem with the $300 positive is that you need to come up with 700 left, right? The difference in mindset and the set for what I'm speaking of is not, I can't get that $1,000. The idea behind it is, how can I make $700? You see, I didn't look at okay, that's the goal. That's where I want to be. How can I get to this point? In fact, I have one of my students going through this specific process right now. And she has decided cans. So turning in cans at 10 cents a can. Okay, so let's say it's 10 cents. Doing a can, so we know that 10 cans equals $1. All right, so 10 of them. Now you just times, or you divide the 700 by 10 cans, okay, because we know that that's $1. So that comes out to 7,000 cans. So if I collected 7,000 cans, that goes out to $700. All right. Now, to make this seem a little bit more possible, because now people are starting to realize, oh, that's not very far. You can fit right about 50 to 55 cans, 60, depending on what kind of bag you're using, into a bag. So let's divide 7,000, let's say by 50. Okay. We need to know how many go in here. Well, the answer to this is 1. All right. We got that there. That'll leave me with 20. So 200. That's 4. And then we just add a 0. So it'll be 140 bags. Now that's not bad. But how am I going to come up with 140 bags? Well, I can guarantee you that in a 2-hour process, you can come up with 2 bags a day. Every day. So 2 bags a day, we're going to divide that. It'll take me 70 days at 2 hours. And I can guarantee you can walk up and down the road here and find them on the ground. So it'll take 2 hours. 70. What number was I doing? Okay, in half. It'll take 70. So it'll take 70 days if I do 2 hours for 2 bags a day. But in that amount of time, I'm also going to make another type of income, which is ordinary income, my paycheck or whatever. And that pay yourself first process, pulling the $30 out, that'll actually lower this process. So in doing so, you'll actually get it in a lot less time because you're pulling out the money that you're supposed to do the right thing. So as you can see here, all basic math. None of this is calculus or trigonometry. Nothing's crazy. All the stuff you learned in school. That's why school is so important. But it's how to think about it. So I could have just said no and stopped myself right there. That could have been the end of it. I can't. Or in a matter of 70 days without touching any other income of mine, I can now create that car, that APR, and like bring it into my world, into my reality. And now I can create $1,500 for 4 hours a day, or I'm going to go on the low side. Let's say it's $500 a week for 4 hours a day. That is the low, like I get that in like 35 minutes if you're doing it right and following your own process to complete what you need to do for your local area. But let's lower that. Okay. So the morning for me, I can get about $145 without trying. But then after that, it's a lot of work if I stay there, unless I pick different times, in which case I've done my own research and development to get there. So let's say $500 a week. Okay, 500 at a $10,000 car, that's probably going to be $275 with your $1,000. Okay, you put the $1,000 down. That's actually a $10,000 loan plus the APR, but you gave them $1,000 to start with, so it's $10,000 at the end. Okay, on top of the $1,000 you gave them already. So that's $275. That still doesn't match that a week, and this is a month. Now I have to pay my insurance, which needs to be full coverage. Let's say that's $300 just to be on the high side. Okay, so now I still in a week almost cover my entire sets of bills. In a week, I've just covered an entire month's worth of bills for that car. Okay, and that's all by saying, not I can't do it. How can I do it? And you see what I did there? Yes, I did do a bit of a pun. How can I do it? The idea behind that is to get you to think in the right process. It's not saying that this is actually going to be your numbers. This is just a hypothetical understanding. I want you to understand that thinking I can't, you literally just cut yourself out of $2,000 a month for goofing off, hanging out and talking to people. Whereas this is a process. Okay, that's a process. It's how your mind works. I used to be I can't, and I can't never honestly got me anywhere. The question is, how can I? So that's the purpose of me having you take your liabilities and think through 3 different processes to do it. The hardest and largest step for any human is when you're ready to let go of that security, to let this go and leave the prison behind, and start stepping for this. And the reason is because now every day is a fight. Every day is a struggle. And if you do it wrong, if you don't do it with much thought process behind it or anything along those lines, you're going to find that this struggle ends you back up in the employment. And that's okay, because you can always try again. That failure should have taught you something. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to fight. It's okay to fail. In fact, I kind of require you to fail. If you use your head well enough, your research and development portion, if you think it through enough and practice this, I promise you that you're less likely to lose your freedoms. You are much, much less likely to lose your freedoms. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying that you won't, have someone come along and step on your your eggs or whatever you want to call them, all the eggs in a basket, cookies in a basket, whatever. Point is, someone's going to kick them over at some point. The question is, did you learn the process or did someone do it for you? Did you get taught how to fish or did someone give you the fish? Because if you're taught how to fish, it's too easy. I'll just go make another form of freedom. I'll go do it again and again and again. The major difference between the rich and the extremely rich is that the rich was like, okay, I did good. I made one business and I'm gonna stick it. The extremely rich realized that, hey, 1 out of every 10 fail, or one out of every 10 businesses succeed. That means I have to be willing to fail in business 10 times. Well, by definition, 9 times, but I'm willing to fail 100 times because that one payoff will be absolutely worth all of those times of failure. And the learning process alone will help you out. And in a business, any business is ran off customer service. So if you have bad customer service, that is the bottom line. You need to get rid of that. Start learning, read books, good leadership skills books. John C. Maxwell puts out a ton of those, and he is an amazing leader. He has built and created tons of things for money understandings, as far as learning to manage it, changing your habits, your understandings of how you do things, why you're doing them. Robert T. Kiyosaki is absolutely wonderful. There's another book that I do recommend, which is called The Mind of a Millionaire. I have one of my students reading through it now. It's pretty dry reading. However, once you fully understand what it is and how it stands, it will become far more interesting to you. You will understand it because you're starting to apply them. Any type of book that is a self-help book, if you don't apply it, it didn't help. It's just another read, and sometimes they're really boring. So you need to learn to apply them. We're coming up on the last bit for the first hour of class. I'd like to know if there's any questions from inside the classroom or from over on my live feed over here that I can hear you from, based off of what I've just shown you today.
Oh, that's pretty straightforward.
Okay. How about you over there? You got anything for me?
Not yet.
All right, perfect. So today's second course will be on leadership, and how a true leader is supposed to lead. I believe that comes to a close here. Your homework for this upcoming next week. Of course, every week I do suggest that you sit down and you redo your personal finances, working out your income versus your outgoing. You'll start to realize that doing that every week, at least once a week, will really, really involve that. What I want you to do is to come up. Now, you've already come up with the liability portion and how can I change it into an asset. What I'd like you to do for the next set of homework through next week is to pick one of those liabilities, pick one of the asset paths that you had chosen, and then find out as much information as you can. I want you to come up with cost. I want you to come up with what is the return? How often am I going to do it? I want to know. And costs, by the way, count as time too. Your time is valuable. We only get so much on this planet. So with that being said, the goal is to get you to start really looking into one. I want you to become an expert at that path. And the best way to do that is you need 2 pages of handwritten. Yes, I believe in handwriting. So please do not type it. If you're going to send it to me, send it in a picture if you're online. But please handwrite and make sure that you work it out so that I can read it if you're sending it online. Handwrite your plan. I want to know as much information about that set as possible. I will read through them. I am not a lazy person, and I will definitely help you out to the best of my abilities. And the only way to do that is to find out what you've learned. And I will have to learn with you on that process, okay? So I want you to understand this. I want you to move into it. If you sit down and you decide, my car is where it's at, but my car doesn't fit the scheduling for what my choice is, you have to choose. That's the second hardest thing. So having the strength to stand up, and you need to know what you're standing up for. So you must make a choice. That is a possibility. We're only doing this on paper. If you step beyond that, by all means, but I suggest you join us in our second hour courses here every Saturday, okay? Second hour courses. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell. We will go into farther details on this, and we will follow those those planned paths. I will go into as far as learning the basic financial portion. I will go into how to recreate and stand on your own 2 feet. We will revisit the 3 different courses we've done for the last 3 weeks. And the reason is because I need you to remember that it's all based off of what you know, what you learned. So we need to continue hitting those fundamentals. And then for the 5th week, we will continue on the next set of courses. So ultimately, it's a monthly review, and that's my goal. Thank you very much for joining us. I again am Robert Gordon. This is Basic Financial. Come back and see us.